At Desktime Stories, we believe that everyone can and will reach their full potential, and that one way to do it is by sharing the stories, adventures, and the people who have impacted us along the way. That way we can learn from each other and move forward together faster, easier, and happier. Everyone has stories, and I invite you to share yours at DesktimeStories.com, to listen to those of others at Desktime Stories podcast, and follow on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram. My name is Luisa, host of Desktime Stories, and today I am thrilled to be joined by Natalie Mendez, who is a director at a local community bank in Madison, Wisconsin. She has been working in the workforce for 20 years and has some amazing stories to share. While Natalie Mendez stands as a leader in the financial industry today, her journey began with a single step at the teller line, a self-made professional who built her career from the ground up. She has spent 15 years turning early grit into a deep mastery of consumer lending. Natalie's talent lies in dismantling complex systems to rebuild them as tools for equity. This expertise was forged not just in the boardroom, but through navigating her own personal chapters, quietly overcoming the hurdles of financial restructuring and the transitions of personal life challenges. These experiences transformed her technical knowledge into a mission, ensuring no woman feels sidelined by the systems meant to serve them. Above all, Natalie is a mother. Her role as a mama is her primary North Star, grounding her work in the belief that the decisions we make today must create a more equitable world for the generations coming behind us. Natalie isn't just reaching for the top. She's dedicated to bringing a sisterhood of leaders along with her. Please welcome a powerhouse advocate for representation and legacy, Natalie Mendez.
Oh, thank you
Natalie,
so much.
welcome to the stories.
That's so beautiful. Thank you, Luisa. Thank you so much for having me. Grateful to be.
Oh, we're so excited. Thank you for joining us. I know that you're going to have so many stories to share. I really hope that you will join us in the future
Of
and that
course.
we have a lot of fun and that everybody enjoys this conversation as much as I know I will.
Yes.
So
Likewise.
thank you. Natalie, do you want to give us a little bit of background about yourself?
I have been in the workforce for 20 years, like you stated. I started working when I was 14. My mom actually owned a little business, and I actually started learning Spanish 20 years ago as well. My dad is from Zacatecas, Mexico. My mom was born and raised here in the United States, and they met, fell in love, had 4 kids. When back in the 90s, they would tell their children, don't speak Spanish. It's going to delay in their education progression. So, of course, my mom and dad flipped and we spoke English in the household. All of my siblings lost the language. And when I was 14, I started working and the girls in the front desk were making more money than me. And I was like, Mom, why are these girls making more money than me? And she's like, because they speak Spanish. And I was like, and you didn't teach me? ¿Qué pasa? And so I started to learn. Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to teach myself. And so that's when I learned I wanted more out of life when I was 14. I wanted to be something more. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to get out there and explore what the world had to offer and not just be pigeonholed into a small high school on the outskirts of Madison where I was one of 5 Latinas, and I wanted to kind of explore my culture that I was never exposed to. So I started to learn Spanish when I was 14, and I started by learning how to give directions over the phone on how to get to my mom's business. And then I started taking information for taxes. So like their W-2s, their IDs, make copies, and get the file ready for the tax preparer. And then all of a sudden I started seeing a gentleman that did speak English. And then from there, the music, man, to this day, I'm still using Google Translate, certain words. With my partner today who is learning English, I'm using Google Translate because I want to do the more in-depth, adjective, verbs, all that stuff. So I'm still learning today.
I mean, it is a complicated language, a beautiful one for sure.
Yes.
And complicated. If I had not been brought up in it, I don't know that I would speak it.
Right. And I'm the only one to this day. My siblings, my older brother has learned a little bit, but no, I'm the only one that grabbed the language, the culture, the food. Oh, the food.
Well, yeah. You can't go wrong with the food.
Yeah.
I am I'm amazed that at 14 you had that lesson that I want more from life. Like, are you kidding me? Like at 14, I don't know. I was watching cartoons and putzing around.
Oh, I was
I was
still doing
not
that.
doing anything of value.
I was still doing that. I was still, eating my mom's food, learning how to do all the life things. But I knew I wanted to speak Spanish, and it's the best thing I've done besides become a mama. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward. In your intro, you were sharing with us a little bit about your history in the financial
Yes,
industry. And so you started at the teller
I
line.
did.
Uh, what took you from tax business to the financial industry?
Good question. When I was 18, I was just finishing up high school. I was in my first semester of college. And unfortunately, my mom was arrested for a federal crime, white collar crime. And that left us homeless. And I had a 13-year-old brother at the time. And I was like, what am I going to do with my life? And my aunt was already working in banking. And I had went right into 3 jobs trying to figure out how am I going to get out of this little Dodge Avenger car, showering out of the Planet Fitness into something that was more stable because I couldn't continue college because I didn't know about FAFSA. My mom was paying for it at the time. And so then I started working at Quick Trip, JCPenney, and a club on the weekends. So I had 3 jobs for probably 5 years of my life, 18 to 23. And one of those, I ended up leaving JCPenney and I got into banking. I got into this small little local bank on the Capitol Square. And I got in as a teller. I was making like $9 an hour. So happy. Monday through Friday. I was still working Quick Trip at nights and on the weekends and sometimes the club. I ended up leaving the club eventually. But I worked 2 jobs then for a very long time. And I was like, this baking stuff is kind of cool. And then I started to learn a little bit more. I started to make friends at the bank. And I got a teller too a little bit after that, like a senior teller. And then I was like, this bank is too small. Like something just hit me 2 years in. I was like, this is too small. So then I moved to a larger Wisconsin-based bank. And I was there for almost 2 years. And I went from teller to banker like almost within 6 months because of my referrals on the teller line. And then I went to banker, and then quite frankly, someone accidentally printed their offer letter on my printer at that bank. And I was like, this credit union is offering this much per hour. And they're like, yeah, there's a bilingual premium as well. And I was like, you're kidding me. Because I thought I made it at $15 an hour at this local bank back in 2000. Gosh, how long ago? 2014. And so then I applied to the credit union, and I didn't know anything about the credit union space. And I was like, oh my gosh, but was there for 10 years. And then I just career shift about a month and a half ago to a community bank as a director of consumer lending.
Gosh. Natalie, I know that you went through that really fast.
I
And
did.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to squeeze every story out of
Yeah,
you. So
yeah,
you better be
absolutely.
ready for a
Yeah.
lot of these episodes because my goodness. Well, first of all, I just want to acknowledge and thank you very much for sharing that very personal part of your life. I cannot imagine the hardship that you went through. You are always very willing to be vulnerable and open. And I appreciate that very much because I know that, well, that's what this is all about, right?
Yes.
Like that we all go through hardships
Hmm.
and we're not exempt from that,
No.
regardless whether people have money or don't have money, whether they're wherever they're born, we all go through things. And so the fact that you're open to sharing that and then overcoming that, it just gives so much hope and it's so beautiful. So thank you for adding that story
Yeah. It's
so much.
really the core to who I am and why I am the way I am today. If I didn't go through all of that hardship, if I didn't struggle, suffer, fall down, get back up multiple times, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be so gritty. So I like to share it. Before
Ambitious.
I wouldn't share it because it is very sad and vulnerable. My brother was 13 at the time, and all of us are doing so well today, all my siblings, great careers. And I'm just so grateful that we overcame statistics.
Mm. You anticipated one of my questions that I have for you later, and I thank you for, of course, as always, you're always ahead of me. What is it that drives you? And I'm sure there's more to it, so I
Yes.
will come back to that. Then the other thing that struck me is so many things, right? Like the bilingual differential. How important, how
Oh,
interesting that, people who speak Spanish, it's important that we try to retain that. And I know it's hard
yes.
because if we live in this country, frankly, English just flows out. I get how hard that would be. So just briefly,
I-
how did you get to that level of Spanish? Because you and I can go at it in
yeah, I
Spanish
know.
for
Yeah, no,
on and on.
I know. The music, like I mentioned, really helped me. There's still this website out there, Lyrics Translate. I would put it side by side on the computer, English and Spanish, and then I would just grasp the music that I love, which is bachata, cumbia, norteñas, banda, all that stuff. I love all
Nice.
of that. And then I started to put myself into that culture with those people.
Mhm.
And my ex-husband is from Jalisco, and he speaks English, but his primary language is Spanish. So in the household, we would only speak Spanish, and that trajected my Spanish to another level, right? And my dad's from Zacatecas, but we still speak English, and I don't know why.
Mm,
But his accent
nice.
is so cute, and his English is so cute, so I don't care. So my ex-husband really helped me bring my Spanish to the next level. And then my current partner has brought it to another level because I want to give him the in-depth stories that I provide to you in the same
Right.
context. But you know how hard it is to translate words? And so I'm constantly putting in English to Spanish, Spanish back to English in Google Translate because I want to make sure that I'm utilizing the correct words to emphasize my story in the same way. So it's challenging me to the next level.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned music because my mom, when she was in the States, she's from Mexico, grew up in Mexico, but she was in the States in the 70s and she learned English. And I'm like, "Ma, how did you learn English?" And she's like watching soap operas and the news.
Of
She's like, the
course.
news, because she's like, you would articulate so well. And so isn't it interesting? Like how
Yes.
wonderful that, that entertainment has its
You can
valuable
actually learn
to
from it.
languages. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that you said is, well, that the value, right, of just speaking it and
Yeah.
just so important. I have a little nephew who he's been brought up here and he tries to speak Spanish and I'm so proud of him because
Yeah.
yes, speak it. Even if it's not perfect, who cares?
Yep.
Just practice it because otherwise it goes away.
Yep.
Natalie. So in theory, Desktime Stories is about focusing on a story and a moment. And it's challenging when I have such interesting people in front of me that there's so many stories to extract from. But anyways, I know that you have a story in mind that you would like to share, and I don't know if you want to start by giving us the background. Now that we know
Yes.
a little bit more about yourself, and we can situate you, like, okay, we know what Natalie's doing, and we know a little bit about her. We have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
paint a picture for us. Where are you at? What are you doing? And then we can dive into your story.
Yeah. So just recently, actually, right before I career changed, I had an individual reach out to me that I actually did a 6-month kind of like contract at United Way of Dane County. And I worked there and I would raise funds for their campaign for that year. And I feel like that was the shift in my mindset, career, humbled me back to like the basics a little bit. And during that 6-month contract, I met a lot of great individuals in the community that are doing the ground level work that we need done to get to where we want to be. And this individual reached out to me saying, "Hey, I'm part of a Women's Institute for Policy in Madison, and I want you to come to this panel and I want you to speak about your career, who you are, how you got to where you are today, anything you'd want to share in between. And then also, I want to talk about power. How do you use your power? How do you share your power?" And I was like, absolutely, I'd love to, because I was going to be one of 4 women. And so I was like, I can learn from the other women. I can meet other women. I was like, I have just gotten into policy and government and politics just to understand a little bit of it. And I get to meet some of the women that are actually doing that work. What better way to grow my network and my knowledge? So I said, yeah, absolutely. And she's like, it's Saturday this time. I was like, okay, cool. I didn't get really any other context, who the presenters were, who the other panelists, who the guests were. And so I show up and I check in and I go look at the panel list and I was like, oh, I don't know if I should be here. And it was a government official, their chief of staff. It was a judge out of Milwaukee. And it was also a doctor that worked at UW Madison. And I was like, oh my gosh, those are some big women doing big things, probably went to a 4-year school, got a master's, and I just graduated with my associate's degree last December. And I was like, what is happening? I don't know if I should be here. And I think we do that to ourselves as women, especially when we feel like we maybe are less than, not in the moment, or at one point in our lives. It's kind of hard to get rid of that imposter syndrome as we continue to grow in our careers and to think that we deserve to be where we are. I know that I can do great things and that I've done great things for a lot of people. I don't know if I could measure up to some of the things other women do, but I know I can learn from them. So I was sitting there like, oh, how am I going to contribute to this panel with these women that probably have all these great stories, this career path, life path? And one of the women wasn't able to show up, unfortunately, the judge. So it was the doctor and the chief of staff, and they put me in the middle. I was like, oh, man. So I'm sitting there and I was like, I think I need some extra water. I was just kind of nervous, I was like, what am I going to share? And so we kind of went around with the questions. The host did a great job. The one that invited me asked a lot of questions, and we kind of shared the questions instead of taking up a whole lot of time. And I started with my career, and I shared a lot about me shifting from my career now to where I was maybe a year ago. How did I know it was time to leave and to make a career change? Because 10 years at the same organization where I had grown the most, I had shifted the most and challenged myself the most, there's a sense of loyalty I provide to institutions or people, especially if they take care of me in the same way, if not better. So knowing that I was going to leave, or I had already left, was one of the hardest decisions besides actually leaving and deciding to leave my marriage. So I shared that as well. I said, how do you know when it's time to leave marriage and a job? And so I started to share that. We got a couple laughs out of it, which was great. And then at the end, shifting to the power section, I learned a lot from the chief of staff and the doctor at that table. And we made a connection on LinkedIn. And I made multiple connections after that, because when the panel was done, they were able to ask questions. And I was like, oh, what are they going to ask us? Because anybody going to ask me any questions? And the first lady that raised her hand was like, this question is specifically for Natalie. And I almost was like, stop breathing, because I was like, me? Like, what kind of question could you have?
You're turning back. You're like, Natalie who?
Yeah. Is there another Natalie here? And I was just, it was beautiful. And she goes, how did you know when it was time to leave? And I said, my marriage or my job? And then everybody started laughing, because honestly, like, I think women could benefit from hearing stories of both. And so she's like, both. So I shared with her that my marriage, when you put in all the tools and resources, therapy, date nights, conversations in the morning, night, partnership it ebbs and flows. And I said, sometimes you kind of have to come to the agreement together. And that's what we did. And so then I said, with my job, I don't know if I outgrew them or they outgrew me. I just knew that I felt like the glass ceiling was coming down or I was going up. I don't know. And so I just felt stuck. I felt like my ideas weren't being implemented. My thoughts, my advocacy wasn't being seen. And so the part where I knew it was time for me to go, I couldn't promote anybody anymore. I was able to do that in the past, and I had lots of room and ability, power to kind of say, this person's ready for the next position, let's promote them. Because there's different tiers in all different types of positions, 1, 2, 3, senior, non-senior, all that kind of stuff in the financial industry. And so when I wasn't given that power anymore to do that, which is my main sole purpose of being where I am and leading, I love to see other women, especially women of color, elevate themselves and challenge themselves and believe in themselves to go to that next level. And when I couldn't do that with one specific woman, I was like, I don't know if this is for me anymore, or this is the place for me to be. And it was very unfortunate because the relationships I grew there, the people that I connected with were the most important to me. And thank God for social media. Thank God for FaceTime, for video chats like we are here today. So with that in mind, I was like, I need to go. If I stay here, I'm either going to jeopardize my mental, physical, or emotional health, and I might not get to the point that I want to in my career in the time frame that I have set for myself. And I am grateful for my title and my position and the organization I'm a part of today. And people will tell you all the time, you can be a leader without the title. And I am a firm believer in that. What I have learned growing in my career is you cannot make decisions, implement ideas, if you're not having a seat at the table where the decisions are being made. And so, yes, I can be a leader as a teller. I can be a leader as a banker. But if I'm not at the table where it trickled down and it starts to impact me, then how much of a leader can I be and how wide can I spread the changes I want? So that's why I keep continuing to grow and want to have seats at tables, but that are a little bit bigger.
I want to bring us back to your original story.
Yes.
So the person that asked the question, so they asked about, did they clarify? Were they asking about?
They were asking about the career, essentially. And then she goes, just share both. And and then
She wanted it all.
she wanted it all. And I tried to shorten it, because I wanted to be mindful of the other panelists. But then I had another woman in the same, so I'll keep sharing that story because there's a little bit more.
Yes, please.
Another woman asked a question of my divorce. And then also she asked, how do you feel good about the change? How do you amp yourself up? How do you empower yourself to say, I'm making this change and I made the right change? And I said, when you're in an interview and you can interview them too, and you can counteroffer. I think a lot of women don't do that. And I was like, when you're in that interview, I said, I had 45 minutes of questions. Who are you? What do you do? Why are you here? It seems like simple questions, but then they take it how they want and they give you the information that you're looking for. And one of the also reasons I took this job was from the questions I asked, I could tell my future boss was just going to empower me and lead me while giving me space and be concise and direct. And that's what I needed and I didn't have. And so asking those questions for 45 minutes helped me say, I think I'm going to take this job. And I almost didn't go to the in-person interview. I was telling them, I was just so loyal to this organization for 10 years that saw me from my worst come up all the way to today. And I was like, it's stable and in an economy environment that we're unsure of. It's safe. They've never laid anybody off. And so I said, I had to ask the same questions at the other place. Have you ever laid anybody off? If there is, all that kind of stuff. And so that gave me a little bit of peace. And I also, you have to build confidence within too, which I tried to do within the 2 weeks that I gave my notice and started my new job. I didn't take a break. I recommend you take a break if you start a new job. I didn't do that. I just feel like there wasn't time. But in that 2-week time where I was ending grieving, right, and starting something new, I had to build the confidence knowing that I'm going to do this. If it doesn't work, there's going to be something else out there. I have the skills and the talent and the quality to go wherever I want to go. And one of the things that I shared with the ladies on the panel as well, because they had additional questions, is I've had some bosses in the past, we all have, that maybe didn't support us in the way that we felt we should have, encourage us in the way that we felt we should have. And sometimes people just don't want to see people grow. And that's unfortunate. And I had a previous boss that said to me at one point in my career, Natalie, the grass isn't always green on the other side. And I'm like, you know what? It's green wherever I go. And that really struck with the women. And it was like all of them were like, yes, it is green wherever I go. Honestly, it is. I maintain my yard. It's really green. I don't know about yours. But I was like, it's going to be green wherever I go. And the women were just 4 and 5 women on LinkedIn, text message, reached out saying how empowering that was to believe in ourselves, to take chances on ourselves, and to move on to the next thing if we know that we have outgrown or they have outgrown us. And they did a celebratory graduation thing for this policy network of women. And on the cake, literally, it said, the grass is green wherever I go. And so I just like to think that little old me, right, empowered these women and they put it on a cake.
Natalie, oh, so much to love about that story.
I
I'm so
know.
glad that you told it. Because, well, first of all, I have to say it because somebody's singing it when they're listening to this. The story starts almost like a joke, right?
Yes.
Like a judge, a banker, and
No, for real.
a judge, a banker, and
Walk into a bar.
room. I love how you made a point to call it out. And frankly, if I were in your shoes, I would be thinking the same thing. So intimidated, right? How wonderful that there's all sorts of people doing great things. So can we
Yes.
please give them a platform? So
Yes.
good for the people that you were sharing a panel with. And
Yes.
and I love that what people saw, the people in the audience, saw the value that you brought. Not that they didn't, but the question was directed at you. They resonated with you. They were like, I have questions for you.
Yes.
You have clearly demonstrated that you know when it's time to go. And it's not a commentary on the organization of it. I
No.
think it's about you, where you are, your growth, your ambitions, what you need at what time. But the fact that you were able to let something go after so many years, despite the uncertainty and
Yep.
right, because one starts like the fear creeps in. And so
Yep.
I congratulate you for being an example for us to just step forward and take it on and go for that bigger title where you can have a seat at a table. And
Yes.
it's just so inspiring.
Oh, thank you, Louisa. Yeah, thank you. I also had a woman reach out to me. I'm on a board for a nonprofit called Embolden, Wisconsin. They're implementing health and policy for women in the state of Wisconsin and beyond. And I had another board member that I've connected with. We only meet like once every other month. But she voice texted me, I have a certain situation. I just want to vent out to you. Give me your thoughts and ideas on how I can potentially leave my marriage and get a new job. And I was like, absolutely. And I said, I don't have a lot of time, but I do love voice memos because I feel like that's a way to connect and talk later, except not being on the phone. I love text messages. I love quick little video chats from going to one place to another in the car. You can make time. And so we talked 2 or 3 times and she's like, even just venting and talking this out to you, because I've not talked to anybody else, makes me feel good. And I was like, yeah, if that's all you needed to and you can't make a decision now, go right ahead, do that. But to know that these women feel comfortable and want and need to talk about these things with other women that have had these lived experiences is why I'll continue to do these panels, is why I'll continue to share my story and be vulnerable. And I don't have to share my whole story if I don't want to. There are parts that I've never shared, right? And I feel like the more I come and share my stories, the more little things that come out, especially when I was doing that 6-month contract. I had to go to 33 different organizations and I had to do a speech on why they should give and donate to nonprofits in Dane County. And I was like, for women like me who were choosing between ramen noodles and cigarettes, living in my Dodge Avenger, this is why you should donate, because I wish I would have known about XYZ program. You know, if I would have known about those programs back in the day, I might have had a different path. But anyway, so that's why I'm going to keep sharing. But when I did that contract, that's what has empowered me to share like I do today, and how I'll share in the future is because I know other women need to hear it and know that there is greener grass anywhere you go.
That is beautiful. So many things I want to comment on. The fact that somebody will reach out to you to vent, it speaks to the safety that you create around you. And I wonder if that's also part of the secret to your success, right? That you make those around you comfortable, at ease. And many times people, you don't need to fix other people's problems. They just need somebody to go to share, to vent, like get it out.
Yes.
And ideally transform it. Whatever negative situation is happening, transform it into positive. And frankly, that is, like, there's so many layers to Desktime Stories, but one of them is like an outlet for us to vent, to share the ugly, but not to stay in the ugly. How can it elevate us? And so I'm very taken aback by when you said the choosing between ramen and cigarettes. I'm like, oh, I had similar choices. I remember having choices between buying my flour tortillas for my quesadillas at home or cigarettes.
Terrible habit.
Yes. No. Things people do when they're young.
Yeah.
Can I just say another thing that it really strikes me? Well, 2 things. One is the balance that you bring, because I've heard throughout your story that you say yes to a lot of opportunities that present themselves to you, but you don't say yes to everything.
No.
Can you comment? Because I heard balance there and boundaries, and that is not easy.
No.
Can you tell me a little bit? Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, good question. When I was younger, I'd say yes to everything. Yes. And then my plate would get so full. And then there was one point in my career where I had evaluations. I'm sure every place has an evaluation once a year, twice a year, however that works. But we had, at my previous organization, we had 2 a year, one mid-year, one end year. And you can get 5 different levels. And I always shot for outstanding in it, outstanding or advanced. Meets expectations was in the middle. And I just didn't feel like I was meets expectations. And so I took on so much one year. And so much. Like my writing of my end year proposal was probably 3 pages because I wanted to emphasize all the work that I'd done. And I got a meets expectation. Yes.
No.
Yes. And it's probably one of the first times I ever got to meet expectations. And I was like, what did I do wrong? Is there something more I could have done differently? Can I display my work in a different way? And she goes, well, that's the same kind of what you did last year and you got advanced. So now it's meets expectation. I said, oh, so now I've elevated the level of work that I provide that now you see as meets expectations. And so I said, what I'm going to do moving forward, and that kind of shifted my mindset. I said, I'm going to take every additional task that is not on my job description off my plate. Volunteerism, financial education, the employee resource group I co-founded, the book club I started for allyship, the other co-lead I did for a different ERG for 6 months out of the year. I also provided financial seminars for the employees for the consumer loans. There's more I did, Louisa. I can't even name all of it. But I said to her, I'm going to take all of that off my plate and I will show you what a meet expectations level looks like. Because I do not want to sit here and do all of this extra work and implement all of these big things that are going to last beyond me and have that. That's just so disheartening. Because I raised the bar for myself, you want to keep the bar there. And so I the next year I did. I dropped a lot of things, which was hard. It was really hard. I'm like, and maybe I needed that, right? Maybe I needed to reset, drop a lot of things that I've already been on for 4 or 5 years, continued, education, all that kind of stuff. And then I sat there and I'm like, what's next? Do I stay here? Do I go? And so then I got promoted at the mid-year, which was interesting. And and then I took on additional things. I was on more project work stuff. And then I just, my new arena of work was not for me. And so then I just moved on. But I don't know what we were talking about, but then I got down the whole story.
No, it was about balance and saying no.
So what I'll say to kind of close the balance out is there will be times in your life where things pivot, things happen, and you just know, you feel in your heart or your soul or your mind that you need to change. And I knew in that instance that I was like, I can't keep saying yes. I'm going to still be graded and looked at the same level as if I say no. And so then I started to be a little bit more picky and choosy and ask more questions. What does this commitment look like? How long does this commitment need to stay in place? Is it going to be reoccurring? Are people going to help and join me? What support do I have in this new commitment? Ask those questions. I just had another lady from the Institute, from the story I was sharing, reach out and say, can you come to a panel about business and business accounts and small business owners? I said, I love that you reached out. I do have some knowledge in that. I think it would be better fit with this woman. I knew that I wasn't the best fit. And so another part that I'm trying to learn in my career is if I know that maybe I'm not the best person for it, I know I could do it. If I know I'm not the best person, what other specifically woman could I maybe recommend for this to elevate her? Because I know what she's working on. And so that when I say no, I try to find a way to recommend somebody else I know that is like me or has a career like me or wants to grow their career like me so that she gets in there too, So that helps me say no.
I think that so many of us can benefit from hearing what you just said, like knowing when to say no, but not, nope, sorry, bye. Like, no, and also
Sometimes
trying to be of help. And, so it's needed. Like, it's like, no, and here's another, a solution. That's very kind of you. I don't think it's necessarily an obligation. I do want to bring it back all with the last thing that I think that wraps it all, that you have helped me see so clearly, with your saying, the grass is always greener wherever I
The
go?
grass
Was
is
that your
green
quote?
wherever I go.
Grass is green wherever I go. That must be tattooed. Next time you
That's
see me, I'll have it tattooed here on my forehead. What I love about that story, everything that you just said is very aligned in the sense that you control your
mm,
environment. You have taken ownership of your life. And when you cannot control other things, that's fine. You don't need to control what other people's opinions of your performances. When you recognize this is not necessarily for me, wherever I go next, I will continue to create the causes and conditions for me to be able to reach my goals.
mhm.
And I kind of want to do a standing ovation. When you first shared this story, I got goosebumps immediately. I was like, oh my gosh, so powerful.
Thank you.
Any final thoughts about that thought specifically that you want to add on to?
Yeah. I just think I didn't get to where I am today without the women like you and many others in my life that saw me, saw something in me, and just held my hand, right? And because I wasn't born in this industry, I wasn't able to go to college right out of high school. I had to teach myself a lot of the things that I know today. And if women didn't empower me along the way, if women didn't encourage me and support me and tell me that it's going to be okay, keep it going, or give me advice in the moment when I didn't know what to do myself, I wouldn't be where I am today. And so if you have women like you or in your group of circle, continue to empower each other. Meet up once in a while. I started meeting up with this group of girls. There's 5 of us, and we do dinner. We try to do dinner every month, and we're in different industries. One's in investments, one's an
Wow.
accountant, one works for the state, and another one's an engineer. We are really good friends, girlfriends. We share all the way from work to personal life. And I think that that's so important. And one of them at dinner the other day was like, can I send you my 30, 60, 90? And can you give me? Absolutely. Like, yeah, send it to me. And so I think to get with a group of girls, personal,
Mm-hmm.
professional, and to continue to build your network and empower yourself.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. You're so generous with your time and your energy today, Natalie. I have enjoyed our conversations tremendously. And before we wrap up and invite people to, follow us and do all the things,
Yes.
is there any last mention that you want to make about anything, any ideal, any purpose, any advice that you have for us?
Yeah. So I was transitioning, I believe, in the last 2 years in my career from staying where I'm at and growing confidence to go somewhere else. And I was told at one point in the last 2 years that my advocacy was extreme. And I think sometimes as women, especially Latinas, we can be told we're overzealous or passionate or we advocate too much. And it just kind of took me by surprise. And I'm thinking in my head, well, we wouldn't have I-10 mortgage. And that took 4 or 5 years. We wouldn't have an increase in bilingual premium if I wasn't a constant advocate in my community and my career. And so when anybody says to you something that maybe you don't believe about yourself, just leave it at the door when you leave. You don't have to listen to it. You don't have to put truth to it. If it's one person's perception, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's reality. Because I doubted myself for a little bit. I was like, is my advocacy too much? Am I doing the most? And do I need to step back? And it's like, no, I don't think some people are doing enough.
There you go.
Yeah, they weren't doing enough. And so that also helped me decide we don't see eye to eye anymore. And that's fine. Like you said, I don't have the ability, nor do I want to control people's actions or their outcomes, especially if it doesn't help me at all. And what I mean by that is our relationship just wasn't working. Now, of course, other women, if
Yeah.
I'm going to put in what you put in, and I'm a girl's girl. And at the same time, I need to look out for myself at the end of the day and make sure that when I lay my head down at night, that I'm okay with who I am and how I showed up. And so if you have somebody, just one person come and say one thing, that doesn't mean it's reality. If you've got 10, 20, 30 other people saying, you are the best boss I've ever had, where you go, I'm going to go. I'm not going to let this one person say that I'm too much. They can keep their opinion over there and we're just going to keep it moving.
I'm so thankful that you got to that point in your life, because going back to the couple of examples that you brought up, increasing the bilingual premium for people that speak Spanish to get paid more, and the mortgages for people who are ITIN holders. For those that don't know, these are people who might not be able to get a mortgage because they do not have a social security number,
Right.
but they have been able to demonstrate other ways that they are credit worthy.
Yes.
And by the way, it's been demonstrated that ITIN holders are some of the best payers.
Yes.
There's very low delinquency rate, if at all.
Yeah.
Just FYI.
That's another story.
But the point here is, right? That's for another day. We can go deep into that one
Yes.
too. But what is important about those examples is that it's not just to help others. First of all, it's a win-win situation. So by you paying a person more for their Spanish-speaking skills, now the business is going to be able to grow that demographic.
Yes.
And boy, has that happened anywhere that hires bilingual people.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of Spanish-speaking individuals in this beautiful country.
Yes.
And so it's not like, oh, we're so noble. Like, no, there's benefit. But there's also benefit to that individual. And that can be the beginning, especially for both of us who come from a financial background that had not occurred to us until magically one day it appeared in front of us. A lot of times we come from the food industry or the hospitality industry, and we stay there because we think that we cannot do more. And people like you show us that more can be done, that we should have that advocacy for others, because just us rising high and achieving things, well, good for you. And then who's going to pay it forward? And then how is it going to come back and keep growing?
Yes.
And so
I have so much I want to share after you just said all that. Representation matters. Advocacy matters. I mean, I'm sure I could share so many stories with you. And one thing that I do want to say, Luisa, is you being where you are today gives other women like me the confidence and ability to say, I can do that too. Because if we didn't have representation, how would I get there? And I know you know what that feels like. But that's also why I want to keep going up. I don't necessarily, money comes and goes. I've been all the way dirt poor to being comfortable where I am now, right? And I think it comes and goes, but it's women like you who show us that it can be done with little to no resources. And it shouldn't be that hard. We should all be up there. We should all be making these decisions. We should all be at the same table. I should be able to have, a whole meeting in Spanish of CEOs, I would love that one day,
You will celebrate with a cake.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Natalie, it has been such a joy. I could go on forever, and we shall continue this conversation. For today, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for joining us at Desktime Stories. Remember, everyone has stories to share, and I invite you to tell them here at DesktimeStories.com, to listen to those of others at Desktime Stories podcast, and follow on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Natalie, such a pleasure. Take care, and we will see you again soon.
Thank you so much, Luisa. Congratulations.
Thank you.